Hello, welcome everyone. I'm going live today, and this is how live I am. I didn't do my countdown. I am sitting in my comfy chair in my office because I have been on Zooms all day. But it is an exciting week. So, whether you're watching the replay or watching live, I am excited to tell you that this week I'm doing 10 insights on cultural leadership in 5 days. And this, crazily enough, is already number 4. So here we are. If basically the way it works is that every morning, Monday through Friday this week, there is a cultural insight that goes out in my newsletter, and then every afternoon at 2:30, I go live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So if you're not already getting my newsletter, you can sign up at my website. The webpage is at the bottom, and you'll get a little pop up that says sign up here, and then you'll be on tomorrow's list. So you'll be able to get the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday gems. And then you'll also get the wrap up email. You'll get all this content, which is great because you can share it with your teams. You can pass it on to someone you know. It's a way to kind of help just build your tools. But enough of that and how we get onto this, because today we are talking about, even though I am a reading teacher by nature, and this is not even on purpose, I have all these books here. This is just how my office looks. There's books everywhere because I'm a big reader and have been a reading teacher for a lot of years. We're going to talk about a very mathy problem. And the mathy problem today we're going to talk about is how many people does it take to measure culture? So culture is a part of everything we do. It always helps or it hurts. It's never a non-issue. And so one of the reasons I like to focus on that in leadership is because it's always there. It's either helping push you up the hill, or it is the hill, making it harder to come up. And so since we're at the beginning of the school year now in September, it's a really good chance to sharpen your cultural skills and your moves so that you can kind of move on moving forward and you can do things in the beginning of the year that make a big impact in months to come. And if you're watching a replay and maybe it's February, it's later, think, oh no, look, it's always a good time to start with culture, right? Like the best time to start is now. And so it doesn't matter when now is, doesn't matter what date it is, there's always something you can do to help. So I want to talk about this question of how many people does it take to measure culture? And the reason I thought I'd talk about this live today was because I hear sometimes a lot like, well, I am the only person who really feels this way on my team, and I just need to build a team of people or get some more folks on board or have a critical mass before we can really do anything about culture. And that is a huge mistake. And here is why waiting for a critical mass of people or a bigger coalition or whatever that is a problem. If you are bleeding, you do not wait to see how much you bleed before you go get the bandage. And so, for example, if I were to fall down on the sidewalk outside, bang up my legs, scrape it all up, I wouldn't say, how interesting. Let's see how much there is before I decide to get a bandage. No, I would stop the bleeding, right? That's what we do. And so it's the same with culture. If you're noticing some challenges and you want to fix it, you have to, if you you have to stop the bleeding earlier. And so you're able to stop the bleeding sooner, and which you can do there, which brings me to my question, like how many people does it take to change culture? Clearly, the answer is not a critical mass. So for those of you looking ahead, you may have guessed it, and it's going to make some of you roll your eyes. It's going to make some of you be annoyed or be like, Beth, come on, if it were this easy. But I'm going to give you the answer, and I'm going to walk you through why that's the case. So the number of people it takes to change culture is, drum roll please, 1. And I know some of you are like, yeah, no, I don't know. I'm not sure. So I offer you 2 pieces of evidence for why this is the correct answer. So the first piece of evidence comes from my therapist. And those of you who got Monday's email are like, Beth, is she always going to quote her therapist? Number 1, my therapist is very wise, and I've been learning from her for a long time. So yes, I will probably continue to quote her. And 2, this is exceptionally relevant because I was in therapy. This is over 20 years ago. And I was talking about someone who was important in my life and how do I change my relationship with that person? And she was like, well, you can change the way you react. And I was like, but Susan, I can change the way I react, but that does not mean that that person will change. And she said, look, you can never change someone else. But if you are in dialogue with someone and you change, they have to change in response to you. It's like an actor reading a script. If one actor changes their lines, the other actor has to respond, right? And so you see this all the time in improv and other areas, right? People change in reaction to what's around them. So even if somebody is being really stubborn and they're going to continue to be really stubborn, if you change how you act towards them, that may change and impact the way that they then relate to you. So that is one theory, is that, right, like in order to have any kind of change, you need to have some initiation of that. The second reason is a little bit more mathy. And so this is the idea of the 1/12th mindset, which you may have seen on some of my other material. It's a concept I learned about from Dave Levin, the co-founder of KIP, who is terrific. And so if I knew how to do fancy things on my live, I would flash a picture up of Derek Jeter and flash a picture up of Willie Blomqvist. So you probably, even hearing those names, no matter how casual of a baseball fan you are, you probably know Derek Jeter, as he's one of the most famous athletes of our time. And unless you're like a diehard St. Louis Cardinals fan, you probably don't know Willie Blomqvist. So I'm going to tell you about both of them. So Derek Jeter, super famous, Hall of Fame. I actually just saw the other day that he was inducted to the Hall of Fame, some Hall of Fame in some way, shape, or form. And he brought his 3 daughters, which I thought was really neat and must have made him so proud. Celebrities, they're just like us. So very famous, right? And his career batting average was slightly under 330, which for those of you who don't know baseball is recorded as .330, which basically means that Derek Jeter gets a hit in about 1 of every 3 at-bats. Okay, so 1 of every 3, that's the piece to remember. Willie Blomqvist had a career batting average of 250. And so in baseball terms, that's recorded as .250. So he gets a hit of 1 of every 4 times at bat. So you've got Willie Blomqvist, a hit 1 every 4 times, Derek Jeter, a hit 1 of every 3 times. And so mathematically speaking, the difference between being Derek Jeter and being Willie Blomqvist is the difference between 1/3 and 1/4. And so the difference between these two athletes is 1/12. Right. And so I know if you're like a super mathy person, you might be like, well, it's not exactly. Okay, look, like for the purposes of the story, we're illustrating it and we're going with it here. So what does that tell us about how many people can change culture? So number one, it tells us that small differences add up, right? The difference between getting one more hit every 3 at-bats versus 4 at-bats is a huge difference. And so small differences add up. They make a really big impact. The second thing is, think of an organization, right? And most people, right? Research tells us, I think, that people work best on teams between, I think it's like 4 and 8 people. And so even if you're in a larger organization, right? You probably work on a smaller sub team of somewhere under 15 people, maybe under 10 people, maybe 5 people. What is 1/12 of 15 people? It's roughly 1. In fact, 1/12 of 12 people is 1, if you want to be really easy on the math there. So out of 15, it's about 1.25 people, rounds down to 1. So if you're in a smaller team or organization, or if you're thinking about, I want to change the tone in my department or in my grade level or in what I do, it is only one person is that critical difference, right? The impact of that small difference, that small sliver, makes a huge difference on what people do. So if you think I'm the only one, that is enough, right? That is enough to change the tone. You only need one person. And I will tell you that 99% of the time when people say this, that's not true. You might think you're the only person, but if something really bothers you or something really problematic, there's probably at least one other person who does that. And so that doubles the impact. And so you also really have to think about, it only takes one person to change the culture. And typically when that person starts, other people might join them. Other people might applaud them. Other people might say, you know what, I'm going to do that too. So in a nutshell, there's like lots of questions that I know can come of this, right? Like, what do you focus on? How do you do it? How does one person best position themselves? What's the best way to figure this out? This is like also hard to figure out and come into. So, we can't get in. I mean, it's like a 10-minute live, right? I'm like at 9 minutes now. So it's hard to talk about that, and it can be nuanced. But in a nutshell, if you want to build momentum, you can start with a small number and a small push, right? And so it only takes one person. And if that one person focuses on something small, it can really start to build some momentum and get some more people attracted to it and figure it out. So I would love to get into it more, but I have my limits here. It's partly why I invented the Learning Lab, which is a project starting in 2 weeks at the end of September, a little over 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today. It starts 2 weeks from today. And so basically it's an intimate kind of group professional development or seminar setting. It meets 4 times over in a month, 2 hours on Zoom. It flies by. And in those sessions, we actually talk about this issue in every single one because we talk about tackling cultural challenges. And what if I'm the only one? What if there's a group of us? What if I've got a group of haters to balance out my group of people who want things to change? How do I navigate those dynamics? There's like lots of pieces to this. And so we talk about what works best for your organization. How do you build a coalition? What do you do about the haters? Where do you start? We look at some tools. We look at some like pretty easy, quick wins. We look at things that don't require resources for folks that might be strapped in that way. We looked at things that like make an impact on mission. We think about kind of how to approach it. And so the topic of the Learning Lab generally is when the bloom is off the rose, leading through challenge, cultural breaches, fatigue, and burnout to get you and your people back to a better place. And it's specifically time for this time of year because I think we've got a lot of like newness and promise and a new year spirit. And the reality is that in October, many of you know, it feels like you can run into a wall. As a leader, as a teacher, your teams, your people, what's going on. There's just a lot that comes in. So I wanted to time this so that people were able to really start to use these strategies so that they can make sure that going into the Thanksgiving holiday for those of us in the US, it was really on an upswing. So all sessions are recorded and it meets on Zoom, but it's not like a TED Talk talking to you. I'm a teacher, right? Like through and through. So it's a great chance to participate and engage. We do a hot seat every week. I personally review all content. We have a Slack channel. Like I really use this as an opportunity for people who might not be able to invest the time or resources in one-on-one coaching, but who do want to have some coaching and some experience as well. So I personally kind of review all work products and I don't know if I'll continue to do this, but for now we did in the summer. It was great. And so I'm interested in thinking about doing it moving forward for more. So in any case, there's more information at the site that's listed, bethnapleton.com/learning-lab. Enrollment ends Friday, September 16th, end of day. So if you want to be enrolled, please reserve your spot now. You can pay later. I'll send you the pre-work survey. I have a unit plan that literally is like, look at survey, pull out examples that fit, talk about this small cultural challenge or this big cultural challenge there as we go through, so we can figure it out. So if you want to build your cultural toolbox, if you want to feel better at night about the moves you're taking with your people, if you want to be confident, if you want to feel like, yes, this is the right way forward, I know what we're doing and I've got it here, you should definitely enroll. And so I think, the way I think about culture is it's like, if you've ever taken like a cross-country plane trip, right? I forget which direction it is. I think if you're flying west, it goes faster than the same exact flight, same miles going east. And I think the reason is because when you're going, I know the reason is because one of those ways you're going into the wind. I'm not 100% sure which way now. And so that's the idea, right? Like if culture is not working for you, it feels like all the work you're trying to do with kids and reading and learning and college admission and discovering your passion feels so much harder. And it's like you're flying into the wind. And then when you have culture working in your favor, even if it's just a small group of people making some small tweaks and changes, it feels like you have the wind at your back. You're getting some momentum. You're able to figure this out. So check this link out if you're interested. There's tons more information there. You can always reach out to me. There's a way via my website if you have any questions to sign up for any of those limited spaces. There are group discounts if you're interested in 4 people from your organization, because that can be so helpful. You can just email me and I'll apply that. And in the meantime, I'm going to wrap up and we'll see you tomorrow, Wednesday, hump day of this 10 culture moments in 5 days. So we will hit the 50% mark. Sign up for my newsletter at that website and see, because tomorrow I will tell you, it's funny, I did not necessarily design it this way, but I guess I was in a baseball frame of mind. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about continuing the baseball analogy, because we're going to talk about how do I know when to swing at cultural challenges. And so that idea of cultural situations arise all the time. And how do I know as a leader, like, what do I swing at versus what do I let go? And so we'll talk a little bit about some of the thinking that you might want to think about as you go into that, because I think that can be hard for leaders because it can feel like culture can be a full-time job. And in some ways it is, because it's like touches everything that you do, but you don't have to be like, and there was a breach and then this happens and I need to shout this out. And like, it feels like whack-a-mole. We are not trying to play whack-a-mole. We are trying to be really strategic here and thinking about what you can do to propel your leadership forward. So hope you're all doing well, and I will talk to you later. Take care.